you're saying, hands up, we want to pay more tax.
Absolutely we are. We're saying, come on, tax us, we can afford it, we're not going to go hungry.
How much more do you want to be taxed?
Well, we have some detailed proposals and so on, but, I mean, basically the economic bit is that we're looking for a kind of 2% over wealth of 3.6 million or something like that. So it's not an enormous amount, frankly. It's not going to make anybody poor overnight, but over time, obviously, it will contribute to a lot to the economy.
Why don't you just pay it? I mean, nobody's stopping you. I mean, you could tomorrow write a cheque to HMRC and say, here's my voluntary contribution to the Exchequer. So nobody's stopping you from doing that. So why don't you just do it? Some people might say this is a bit of virtue signalling because they know they're not paying it, they don't have to pay it, and it's easy for them to say.
No, well, absolutely, I could do that. I pay into various charities and so on. I do support charitable causes. But actually, that really isn't the answer. I mean, I could donate some money, but I can't do this alone. Actually, if I donate, a few $100K or whatever, that makes a small difference for a small amount of time. But if all people with my level of wealth and income actually did the same thing, we could really make a difference to the economy of this country and actually rebalance the tax system to the point where the wealthy are paying much more and a much fairer share of taxation, and the poor and the working people who are penalised at the moment aren't paying as much.
Now, we had a bit of an experiment with this in 2014 because President Hollande in France, he introduced a 75% super tax for people whose earnings were over €1 million. And what happened was there was an absolute exodus of high earners from France. Tax receipts went through the floor. The budget deficit rocketed, and Macron at the time, who obviously before he became president, described it as Cuba without the sun. Hollande scrapped it after no time because it wasn't raising more money for the Exchequer, it was actually costing them money. So is there not a danger the same thing would happen here?
No, I mean, firstly, €1 million is a much lower threshold than we're looking at. Secondly, there was a lot going on in France in 2014 and so on, and there were a lot of factors playing into that. But actually, no, I don't believe it does. And if you look at the research about capital flight in particular, if you put wealth taxes on, or if you tax entrepreneurs more highly, actually there's very little evidence that really that does happen. And certainly if I look from a personal perspective, I invest in the UK. This tax would hit me. It's very clearly, we're not saying a wealth tax for all people who are richer than me. This would hit me. That would not change the way I feel about the UK. I'm a patriotic millionaire. I would continue to invest here. I would continue to do business here.
Why do you think it's important that this is considered now? Is there something that's happening at the moment that makes this tax of wealthier people more important than ever before?
Well, I think we see two things. We obviously see the immediate cost of living crisis, which is really hitting a lot of people very hard. But also, the general levels of poverty and inequality in this country are very high. We've got 1 in 3 kids in poverty in this country, and we're the 5th wealthiest economy in the world. And that can't be right. So we need to do something about that. And we need to raise money and reduce that level of inequality. And the way to do that, we believe, is actually by the kind of thing like wealth tax, by taxing wealthy people who can afford to contribute more.
People will talk about there's been a huge sort of polarisation in society in so many things, whether it is wealth, whether it's communications, whether it's opportunities. And during COVID, you saw people who were billionaires, who had millions of pounds, did actually significantly well under it. And then people who you'd class as averagely well off, they've all been sucked into paying a higher tax. And you're looking at some people saying, we haven't got enough money, we need less tax. So are you looking at a restructuring of the tax system full stop? So the super wealthy are paying more. So there's different levels in there. Because there seems a huge unfairness with people who think, well, I'm averagely way off, I'm now paying a fortune, I'm on less money.
Absolutely, and we're looking at a rebalancing, essentially. I mean, we're not talking about what the overall level of taxation should be in the economy. That's a different question, if you like. But we're saying actually more of that should come from the wealthy and less of it should come from working. And again, as an example, we have this crazy situation where income that's generated from capital, from wealth, actually gets taxed at a lower rate than income from work. Again, that can't be right.
How many people are in your gang? Is there 3 of you? Is there lots of you? Is this a movement? Are we going to see some action? Because I do believe if you could move it out, extend it out, then let's think about, because we don't probably necessarily agree on this, but I do think the time is right, and that's why I asked you about timing. Is this not the time? And if people like yourself are saying, we want to do it, who are we to say no?
Absolutely. Well, I completely agree with you.
Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely. But yes, and we're a fairly small, group at the moment. We're somewhere between 10 and 20 people, but we're new and we're growing. And we're...
So where's the opposition? Where's the opposition? Is it other billionaires, millionaires? Is it government? Where's the opposition?
There's no opposition from the general public. We did some polling, found actually a very significant majority were actually supporting this. A majority also thought that extreme wealth actually undermined democracy.
Why?
Which is interesting, and that's some of the instability you talked about, because it creates unrest and social division, and that's bad for democracy. There was a study by BNP Paribas, I think, a couple of months ago, again, that emphasised this. They looked at 36 countries. UK came 35th, with Latvia the only one behind us in terms of... And what they said about the UK was that actually we're failing to provide that equitable opportunity for people that's essential in a capitalist democracy.
The thing I just wanted to... You said you gave money to charity, which is great. I just wondered if I'd got sort of lots of spare money, which I wanted to go to people I thought were more deserving and more in need of it, I would have thought that tax was one of the most inefficient ways of getting my money to those people, because, of course, you pay your tax, it goes to HMRC, there's a huge amount of bureaucracy that goes on in collecting that tax. Then it gets redistributed after a whole lot of bureaucracy. And so what ends up going back to the person that I want it to go to is very small compared to what I've just given. Whereas if I just give it direct to a charity or to people in my community I need help, then all of that money goes to that. So I'm surprised that you think that tax is the most efficient way for you to get your money to somebody else who needs it.
OK, a couple of things on that, and that is something that we hear. Firstly, charities, yes, do great work, but they regard themselves as doing quite well if 75% of the money they collect actually goes to the causes. The rest is spent on collecting money. Governments talk about 96%, actually, so it's, that's a big difference. But the point is really about getting all the millionaires and billionaires to contribute. Again, if we contribute as individuals, some people will do it, some won't, either because they don't want to, they disagree, they're doing other things with their money, they're too busy, whatever. Actually, through government and taxation, we can mediate that and actually get a much bigger contribution. And, you're talking now about generating billions of pounds into the economy, not, a few hundred K or millions.
So, for people at home who might not know you, how did you make your...
Is this for the begging letters? How did you make your money?
Fortune, yeah.
I worked for mine. I mean, I started off... my parents were engineers. I started off in scientific research and development, then went to a consultancy company, built up a share of the firm, and we sold the firm off. So, through bonuses and ownership of the firm, I made a significant amount of wealth. But I have to say... Had I been told at the beginning of that, you're going to be taxed at 10% or whatever number on that wealth, that would not have changed what I did at all.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.